Welcome to the HR Hot Seat Mastermind orientation. My name is Erich Kurschat. I'm going to get into an introduction in just a moment, but I'm so glad you're all here. You are all muted for now. And then maybe toward the end, if we have some time to chat, we can do that. Or along the way, you can make use of the Q&A chat area to submit your questions that you may have. And then as I see those come in, I'll be happy to try to answer those. This is part of a series of lunch dates, Harmony Insights lunch dates that I have scheduled for the next week and a couple of days. This is the very first session. And going into next week, I'm going to be inviting or featuring guests to speak with on the topics of sudden change, on networking from home, on guidance in your job search. So if you're interested in any of those topics, you can find them at harmonyinsights.com/lunch dates. So all the information is there and you can sign up. They're all free. They're at noon Central Time and they're 30 minutes on Zoom. Today, I want to get into a conversation about hopefully the topic that you are here for, the HR Hot Seat Mastermind community. My name is Erich Kurschat, as I mentioned a little bit earlier. I have a company called Harmony Insights. And through Harmony Insights, I help people by using the DISC personality assessment. So raise your hand or put something in the comment box, the chat box, if you have heard of the DISC personality assessment before. Should at least be a couple of you. I know you've heard me talk about it, that's for sure, and probably seen me post a bunch online. But companies are using the DISC assessment now, especially with their remote workforces or remote workers, to help them communicate more effectively and productively with each other. And it's a good way to engage and develop teams online without having to bring people together face to face in this time when we are physically distanced. I've seen a lot of that recently. Instead of socially distanced, people are saying physically distanced. I really want us to be socially connected. And that is one of the biggest reasons why I have scheduled these Harmony Insights lunch dates, to bring people together for meaningful conversation around some really topical or timely topics. So I have Harmony Insights. HarmonyInsights.com is my company, but I'm also the founder of HR Hot Seat, which is an inclusive mastermind community that you are all here to learn a little bit more about. My background, I spent 16 years in corporate human resources. And I transitioned out of corporate HR in August of 2015 to focus full-time on Harmony Insights so that I can help companies use the DISC personality assessment with their team members. But coming out of the corporate world, I very much wanted to stay in touch with human resources professionals. That was my background as an HR practitioner. But it was also just a language that I was familiar with. And HR professionals were often the people that were bringing me in to do the DISC work that I do. And so I thought, well, if I can stay in touch with HR professionals, you know, I will feel like I'm able to remain close to this community that I had grown so close to, but had grown such an affection for, I suppose. I was trying to figure out how to do that at first. And being a small business owner, I had a number of different challenges thrown in my direction. I thought, but I'm gonna start by going where HR professionals are. They're in the local SHRM chapters, Society for Human Resources Management, local SHRM chapters. There are 8 or 9 of those around Chicago. And I thought, well, I'll start there. Went to some other organizations and associations and just had some great experiences connecting with HR folks. But I learned very quickly that there was something that I was looking for that I was not finding myself. I identify with being an introvert. Raise your hand if you also identify with being an introvert. I see Chris Harris on and a couple of other people that I recognize. You know, we get our energy in very different ways than extroverts do and look for something a little bit different in our socializing. And I wasn't finding exactly what I was looking for. And I brought a couple of resources on with me to share with you, because I want this conversation to be not only inspiring, but actionable. So if you're interested in learning more about introversion, a topic that I speak on pretty regularly, you can read a book by Susan Cain called Quiet. I would also recommend checking out her TED Talk And another one that I don't see recommended as often that I love is called The Introvert Advantage: How to Thrive in an Extrovert World by Marty Olson Laney. So this is another one. The first one was quiet, and this is called The Introvert Advantage, and just two fantastic books on the topic of introversion. And I thought, this is something that I want to do something about. I want to bring HR professionals together on my time because I do like facilitating, and I want to bring them together in an environment that I myself would want to participate in. And so at the time I was reading a book called, it's very serendipitous how this stuff happens. I was reading a book called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, a classic business book, classic book in general. And he doesn't spend a ton of time talking about them, but he mentions this topic of, or concept of, a mastermind group. And not only was I reading about it in Napoleon Hill's book, but I was hearing about mastermind groups through podcasts that I was listening to. Pat Flynn, Dan Miller, Michael Hyatt, and a few others talked about getting together in a what they called a mastermind group. And a traditional mastermind group, as I was learning about it, was a small group, usually 6 to 12 people, of folks who had common objectives. They had commonalities in terms of what they were looking to achieve in life. And it could be personally or it could be professionally. Quite often I was hearing about the professional context. CEOs, small business owners, people who were facing similar challenges that said, you know what, we believe in these sayings that iron sharpens iron and a rising tide lifts all ships. So rather than me sitting by myself trying to struggle with this challenge that I have, why not come together with like-minded individuals who can hold me accountable and support me in what I'm looking to do professionally? And then people with whom or for whom I can return the favor. A defining factor of this mastermind style conversation that I was learning about was, it was, yes, problem solving, but a lot of different conversations were doing that. It was problem solving via the hot seat. And this was a concept that I hadn't heard of before, but one person in the group would sit in the hot seat. And that person would be saying, I am coming to this group of people that I trust for support and accountability on a current challenge that I am facing, a very specific challenge. So this isn't sort of some high level theme or some high level problem or issue that society in general is facing. This is a very specific challenge that I, Erich Kurschat, am facing. And I'm coming to this group of trusted individuals to get feedback on this challenge. So it's small, 6 to 12 people. It's helping some specific person solve a specific challenge. It's consistent faces. So people coming together maybe once a week, maybe once a month, but coming together regularly anyway, in that same group. So you don't have a bunch of turnover. You're building trust and rapport with the same individuals. And these were all defining factors of the traditional mastermind group as I was coming to learn about it. And I thought, there's something to this. I don't know that this is being practiced in the HR space, especially here in Chicago. I hadn't heard about it anywhere else. So I thought, I want to start what I decided to call the Chicago HR Mastermind. And I said, okay, how can I get a quick audience for this? And I decided to host it on meetup.com, because I figured people were already going to Meetup, at least here in Chicago, not necessarily in other markets as I've come to learn, but here in Chicago, people were going to Meetup because they were motivated to connect with other people around some common topic, which was so perfect for what I saw the mastermind experience to be. So I said, all right, I'm going to start the Chicago HR Mastermind. I'm going to bring 6 to 10 people together if I can on a regular basis. I want to build rapport with these people so that these HR professionals are considering me as a DISC facilitator, but also just staying on top of the workplace challenges that HR folks are facing. So on August 2nd, 2016, I had my first Chicago HR Mastermind meetup at a place called Next Door, run by State Farm in Lincoln Park, just north of the city here in Chicago. And we had 6 people show up, and they were all friends and colleagues of mine in Chicago SHRM, as it happened, a local SHRM chapter that I was very active in. I didn't have to pull too many or twist too many arms. I just said, hey, this is something different that I'm doing. I want to create this environment where HR professionals can come together, connect meaningfully, And maybe for selfish reasons, it's not going to be as overwhelming to me as some of these larger networking events that I was going to. So yes, I wanted to serve other people, but there was a selfish motivation for me as well. I didn't want it to be awkward. I wanted to enjoy the conversations I was having with people in an environment that was a little bit more conducive to connection for me, specifically as someone who identifies as being introverted. So we held it in a co-working space, gathered people on meetup.com. 6 people showed up, and I got great feedback. And people said, well, this is different. You know, we have other opportunities and other ways to come together, but there's something unique about helping a very specific person solve a very specific challenge in this way, where we can really get to know each other in this small group conversation instead of in a much larger setting. My first monthly event started at 6, as I mentioned, and then my second one a month later was 9, and my third one I think was 14, and they're all free, by the way. They had all been free because I didn't want that to be an obstacle for people. And so it wasn't growing exponentially, but there was clearly interest. And I thought, okay, I'm onto something here. And so I want to keep this going to see what it turns into. Well, it turned into more people is what it turned into. I think as word spread, people thought, this is something I want to come back to, but I also want to bring people to. I want to tell other HR professionals around Chicago that something special is happening with this group. We outgrew the co-working space very quickly, and we moved on to a company who had a small boardroom available for us. And I had a colleague who worked there, and she said, hey, I would love to host this. And I can get maybe 12 or 15 people around our boardroom table. And I said, perfect. That's the size that we're at. Probably not going to grow too much larger than that, but we'll run with that in the meantime. After she hosted us a few times and we started pushing the maximum capacity of that boardroom, suddenly we needed more space. So found another organization that was willing to host us, and they had space for up to 60 people. And I thought, oh my gosh, we're going to be there forever. There's no way we're ever going to outgrow a space for 60 people. You know, who do I think I am trying to build a group this big? And more people showed up, and more people brought colleagues. And suddenly, 7 or 8 months, I think, into this new company hosting us, we were at 60 people. And I had a really important decision to make. Do I cap this, or do I continue to have it grow? At this point, the Chicago HR Mastermind had turned into, gone from a mastermind group to a mastermind community. And I was challenged by a couple things in particular. Number one, we had a revolving door style of membership. So the same faces weren't showing up, which means people weren't building trust with the same faces month after month. At first, I was concerned about that, but I decided that was okay because my goal was to serve as many people as I could, have as many people hear me get up, introduce myself, and say that I was the owner of Harmony Insights and I facilitated disc workshops. But then also it gave me the chance to educate people on what a mastermind could be, should they want to start one themselves or join another one, or simply continue to come back to what I was doing. In the meantime, we decided to test out what additional chapters could potentially look like. And a very good friend of mine, a colleague, came and said, you know, I would like to try in the western suburbs what you were doing downtown. I think it's a really unique concept. And I want to see if this would work out outside of the city, because what I was doing was primarily downtown. And so she launched the western suburbs chapter of the Chicago HR Mastermind. Her name is Christine Bedelow, and she still runs it, and was our first chapter outside of the city of Chicago. And then we started a second in the northern suburbs. And so at this point, we were up to 3, but we were still called the Chicago HR Mastermind. I really had no idea that there would be interest outside of Chicago, but I'm beginning to think that it's a possibility. At this point, we have to grow beyond our host of that could only hold 60 people. And I thought, okay, we've been here for 7 or 8 months straight. I want to see what the impact would be of having different people host us. And so one of our first hosts outside of, well, there were a number that were thrown in the mix, but the point was that we started to bring different hosts into the mix, all downtown Chicago. And each time a different host would have us, different people would come out for it because it was a different area of town, of the downtown area. It was a different brand. Different people were interested in seeing different office spaces. And soon we were outgrowing even those spaces. It got to the point where I was getting messages from small business owners and others around the country saying, we're hearing what you're talking about on podcasts. You know, we hear how you're serving the Chicago area. There are HR professionals in our areas of the country who are not being served in the way that they are craving. They're looking for this peer-oriented conversation that is a little bit different than the more traditional networking opportunities that are out there. Can we, in some way, piggyback on what you're doing? And I thought, okay, we have to do something very important here. We can't continue to be the Chicago HR Mastermind if we are growing beyond Chicago. That name isn't going to hold. And so I gave it some thought and I said, what is the defining factor of our problem-solving conversation? It's the hot seat. So we decided to go with HRHotSeat. And in November of 2018, I rebranded from the Chicago HR Mastermind to HRHotSeat, knowing full well that it was only a matter of time before we were able to grow beyond Chicago. And we did almost immediately with a chapter in Greenville, South Carolina, of all places. Honestly, a place I hadn't been to, hadn't heard of, but there was interest there. And I thought, what better way to see how this is going to go outside of Chicago than to start a Greenville chapter of what became HRHotSeat. Well, I'm not going to bore you with all the details in the meantime, but fast forward to today, we are up to 10 total chapters, including 3 in California. So we are nearly coast to coast at this point. We have Indianapolis, we have 4 in the Chicago area, including now a 4th in the southern suburbs, south side of Chicago, that's looking to start up and launch pretty soon. We have over 2,500 members. Remember, we started with a goal of 6 to 12. We're up to 2,500. So it is a true mastermind community at this point. We have all sorts of fun stuff like trademarked logos. We have a fancy new website that's connecting all chapters. So before the chapters operated independently on meetup.com, now we all exist at HRHotSeat.com. It remains free, and we are continuing today with what we started in August of 2016. And I want to take a moment now to mention or highlight some of our foundational tenets, because yeah, that origin story is interesting. The buildup is kind of cool, especially having been a part of it this whole time. But I think what is most important, what sets us apart, are some of our foundational tenets. It's part of our mission. You can call it whatever you want, unique selling proposition. But these are the things that I've identified as being most important to us, and that our members have reiterated time and time again are most important to them. And I should clarify at this point that I continue to facilitate our Chicago chapter. We're coming up on our 45th consecutive monthly mastermind meetup this April, on April 14th. It's going to be our second online mastermind meetup. But we have other licensees as well, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But common to all of our chapters and the entire community are a number of these things. Number one, and these are in no particular order, but just the way that I wrote them down just moments ago, it's free to attend. If it wasn't free and we were chasing you for dues or payments, event, fees of some sort, that would make it transactional. I am the first to admit that I'm speaking from a position of privilege, in the sense that I don't have a board. We're not a true association. My overhead is fairly controlled, so I can get by with this. Along the way, I considered charging people at a certain level for some bells and whistles, and I thought, that's not what we stand for. We are built on meaningful connection. That I, as an introvert, didn't like networking events that felt transactional and superficial. So if I wanted something that was truly meaningful, how could I welcome you to my event and then chase you down for 20 bucks afterwards? That takes that meaning out of our relationship and really does make it transactional. So all HRHotSeat events across the country in all 10 chapters are free to attend. Number two, or just second on my list, it's peer focused. So you can go anywhere else and be taught by a single subject matter expert. Nothing wrong with that. You can go to a seminar, you can go to a workshop, you can go to a class, you can go to a round table where someone is leading it. We say that everybody shows up has equally valuable perspective and experience to add to our peer-focused conversation. Everybody's a subject matter expert, whether you are a tenured, seasoned practitioner, or you are a student, or you are in job transition, or you're getting into HR. The fact that you have lived a day on this earth means that you bring some experience and perspective that's going to be valuable to our conversation. So we're peer-focused. Number 3 on my list, I already talked about meaningful connection as opposed to being transactional. It is safe and confidential. We ask that. We don't have people sign anything when they show up, but we say one of the quickest ways to build trust with one another is to keep what we discuss here confidential. We're not judging one another. We are all in different phases in our careers. So treat vulnerability with respect. And I don't know that I've ever actually put it in those words before, but I think that's a great way to look at it. We want to create a safe environment, psychological safety, certainly physical safety, but we want to know that what we discuss is going to stay here and isn't going to be shared online. This is a big one. It's non-commercial. You can go anywhere to have service providers in the mix who shove business cards down your throat. And we do welcome service providers, but they're there to educate and serve. And we do have sponsors, some of our chapters. I do included. And I get up and I introduce them. And in the same breath, I say, these people are here to educate and to serve you. If at any point they're selling, in a bad way, we'll say, because selling itself isn't a bad thing, pitching, making you feel uncomfortable or awkward, let me know. And we're going to have a conversation about that. But in the meantime, it's a non-commercial environment where you can show up and expect to be served and educated over pitched to in some uncomfortable way. It's structured. We have both small and large group conversations. We take advantage in my chapter, in the Chicago chapter, I can get up to 120 people at our free monthly events when they were in person. A little bit lower now that we are, that people have other priorities, of course. But we can get a lot of people there and we can take advantage of those larger numbers. We've done book club, we've done special interest group conversations, we've done all sorts of things. So we can take advantage of those larger numbers, but, and the introvert in me and in other people appreciate this, we have small group breakout conversations, the hot seat discussions, where we are in groups of around 10 people, no more, that can connect individually and intimately in a way that we did at our very first Chicago HR Mastermind meetup in 2016. So we have that small group structure where even introverts are showing up and saying, you know what, I can do this. I appreciate this. It's not just standing around trying to figure out what to discuss the whole time. It's sitting down and saying, you know, Sean has showed up and Sean has brought this challenge to our conversation. How can we help him tackle this challenge? And in so doing, build meaningful rapport with Sean and with one another in a way that is comfortable and inspiring to us. We are service oriented. People show up to serve other people. It's not, I think people are asking what's in it for me. I think we always do, but it's not so explicit. It's not so overt. People really do want to help one another. In the beginning, I thought people are going to be climbing over each other to sit in the hot seat. Where else can you go for free and sit down and get 30 minutes of people's undivided attention in a small group to help you tackle whatever challenge you've brought? Everybody is going to want to do this. As it turns out, the majority of the people that show up are not showing up necessarily to be helped, but to help other people. And I love that. It means some months that it's difficult for me to fill a full slate of hot seaters, people to drive our conversation, but I would rather that than everybody showing up saying, what's in it for me? In my various networking sessions that I have, and we're going to do one next week if you want to join us for it, called Networking Without Pants. I'm just going to leave it at that. But we talk about the value of being of service to other people first and foremost. Yeah, I may have my own needs, but I'll get my needs met if I first help you get yours met. It's the universal law of reciprocity that says if you help enough other people get what they need, you will get what you need. And side note, one of the best questions I've learned to ask these days, if you're not asking it, regardless of whether you're employed, you're a consultant, you're unemployed, it doesn't matter. Ask people, what is your greatest need right now? You've seen it on a couple of my registration forms. The answers you get to that will help you serve people in ways that you might not otherwise anticipate. So as you go about the coming days and coming weeks. Ask people what their greatest need is right now and bend over backwards to help them accomplish that or achieve or meet that need in some way. A couple other points of difference. One, we're actionable. You can go to a roundtable discussion and a high level topic bounces around all day and people get inspired. And then you walk away saying, well, wait a minute, how does this apply to the work that I do? What we discuss is immediately actionable. The person in the hot seat, the very next day can apply what they've learned to their job search or to the workplace. People who contributed to that conversation are hopefully gleaning something from that discussion that they can take back and have be immediately actionable the very next day as well. And then finally, our biggest point of difference, and that was quite a list, I understand, I probably need to shorten it or abbreviate it, is that we remain mastermind style focused. So again, as opposed to that roundtable style of conversation, when you show up, you know, very specific people with very specific challenges are going to be helped. And actually our tagline, if I remember this now, because I've changed it a couple of times, is HRHotSeat is an inclusive mastermind community of specific HR professionals solving specific HR challenges. And that's really important to us. It really drives what we do in a way that keeps us different and unique among some of the other groups that are out there. And there are fantastic groups out there. We are very collaborative. So I have no qualms with mentioning some of the other organizations that are doing similar things. Disrupt HR does some fantastic things. Hacking HR, led by Enrique Rubio, they do some amazing things. There's I believe, a Hacking HR Alliance. There are a number of things that have that exist these days to help people problem solve in different ways. And I speak regularly with the founders of these groups to trade best practices and ensure that what we're doing remains unique and different in some way, so that you come to my event and when you leave, you try something else out. And if you come back to me, that's my goal. If you don't, that means I'm not doing something right. I'm not doing something unique and valuable enough to compel you to want to return. I know we only have a couple of minutes left, and you're welcome to stick around afterwards, but I wanted to respect your time and keep us to the 30 minutes that I promised. Our website, as you can imagine, has a lot more information. It's relatively new. I'm still figuring out some of the bells and whistles and trying to make it a little less clunky in places. But HRHotSeat.com, if you haven't already, is where you can go and create a free community profile. That's step number one. You'll see a promotional video there that will do just a fantastic job of building on what I've told you to tell you what we're all about as a networking organization. Step one is to create a free profile at HRHotSeat.com. And step two is to join a local chapter. You don't have to if there isn't one in your area, or if you're just kind of looking around to see what we're all about. But the only way to really engage and to find out about upcoming events online these days, connect with other people, and to take advantage of some of our forum opportunities for posting job opportunities and sharing, for example, COVID-19 resources and some other things, is to join a local chapter, which you can do by going to the chapters drop down in the main menu and then clicking either join group or request membership. I believe a few of our chapters in California are approving membership. The vast majority of our chapters don't, and it's just different reasons, not right or wrong. But joining the group is the best way, or joining a local chapter is the best way to get involved. And then lastly, opportunities for licensing. We have 10 chapters now, and this is something that I want to make available and to business owners and others across the country. So if you live in an area of the country where you think, you know what, I want to serve HR professionals, HR networking here is either non-existent or somewhat stale, or just could be refreshed in some way, let me know, get in touch, and we'll talk about the opportunity to license a new chapter in your neck of the woods as well. Plenty more that I could say, and we'll continue to say online. So hopefully you're following along at HRHotSeat.com. Harmony Insights on or Erich Kurschat on LinkedIn, Harmony Insights on Twitter and Facebook. And then you join next week, tomorrow and next week, for some of the additional Harmony Insights lunch dates that we have coming up. I would love to have you involved and answer any additional questions you may have related to the HR Hot Seat community and other things that we're doing these days to really try to connect people meaningfully at a time when we can't do so face to face. You know, I cringed when I heard that social distancing term originally, because I thought, I think it's physical distance that we want. I think socially, even those of us who are introverted, I think we want to remain connected. I think that there's value in that. If you're interested in talking further about DISC opportunities for your organization, we can talk about that. A book that I recommend is called I'm Stuck, You're Stuck, by Tom Ritchie, I believe it says. And then there's a subtitle down there that goes on a little bit longer, but that's a great book for learning about DISC as well.